Morning, everyone. How are we today?
Hella
Good.
tired. Don't know
Good
how these
yourself?
people are so energetic.
Well, apparently they've been staying up all night drinking coffee.
This is what happens when the presidential election's on.
Yeah, I know, but it ain't even our election. Like, not gonna lie, I'm not really kidding.
I stayed up till 1:30, and Florida was still on the balance. And I woke up at 6:30, and Florida was still on the balance. So I kind of thought, why did I even bother?
Yeah, to be
It's-
fair,
it's
the
Florida.
better way to do it is just to sleep and wake up the next morning to see what's happening.
Has
Yeah.
Trump won Florida?
Florida was still the same.
Has Trump won Florida?
Yeah.
Piss off.
I'm surprised they let him rerun. Like, didn't they have so much on him? Or was that just me? I don't know.
Well, let's just say they knew exactly what they were voting for this time.
Wow, okay, that's not really great, is it?
I mean, neither options are good, to be fair.
What's good?
Neither of the options are the best.
Yeah, okay,
just-
I guess. But like one of them's legit a criminal.
Yeah,
See, the thing in my head, right? I see it as you have one worse than the other. Like, you have Trump, and then you put in Biden. Like, what the hell, man? Oh, I don't get it.
Yeah. Anybody going to turn on the camera? Make me feel slightly less alone?
don't go camera, sorry, sir.
That's effort.
I got.
I don't think you'd really want to see that this morning. Haven't had enough coffee yet.
Okay, let's start off as usual. Any questions about last week's lecture?
I remember vaguely something about like we had to do something where there was a function involved which wasn't really in Python, but like you could do it with like a keyword or something. Or was that something we had to do this week? I wasn't sure. I couldn't find it anywhere.
No,
I
no,
don't
that
really know
was
what you're asking.
he's talking about the random number question for like last year's lab.
Oh, the one I incorrectly showed you.
Yeah, I think that's what he's talking about.
Right, no, the right lab's on screen just now.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
the one you should have been doing.
Yes.
So are there any questions about that lab actually?
Do we include the two questions in the lecture as well, like in the lab?
What?
There were two questions regarding like appending of the grading things in the lecture. Like
Oh, yeah,
the last
yeah.
two slides
Yes.
of the presentation. Yeah, okay, that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
Enrique asked you to do those as well, don't forget.
I'd
Any
be
other
interested
questions?
to see how you did question 4. Yeah, I'd be interested to see how you did question 4.
Hi, Tony. I kind of get question 3 running, but I don't think I did as per the brief, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I
Define not as per the brief.
I sat and
Well, I
banged,
kind of find the brief a bit confusing.
I sat and just banged my head on my table for about 6 hours trying to figure that one out.
See, what I did was ask them to choose a number to start with and a number to finish with. But I really don't think that's what it was asking for.
Well, it was asking for two different things. So it was asking how many odd numbers do you want to sum? So if the answer to that was, for example, 5, it would start at 0, and it would take the first odd number, 1. It would ignore 2, it would take the second odd number, 3, then 5, then 7, then 9. So that's 5 odd numbers. And it would add
Right,
up
so
1, 3,
I did
5,
that wrong.
7,
Can we
8.
talk about how we did that?
Pardon?
I definitely did that wrong then, so can we maybe talk a little bit more about that?
Aye, so did I.
I had a question regarding that question as well, but that was more, do you include the first value given if it's odd? I made mine include the first value given when it's odd, but I could change that. I don't really I wasn't really aware at the time. whether we had to include it or not.
Okay. What I'm going to do then
Like,
is
I've done it a different way as well. To the way others are saying, told them to input what was the highest number they wanted to add. So say they wanted to add 15, so then it would do all the odd numbers between 1 and 15. Was another way of doing it.
sounds to me like you guys don't need a course in programming. You need a course in English.
The question was very, let's say, vaguely worded. Okay, give us that.
Well, because I asked everybody else last night in our wee study group, because to be honest, I thought you were asking for a random number of odd numbers, i.e., as you just said there, they could decide they want 5, which is 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. Okay, not the end of the range, which is what I actually ended up writing.
I tried to do it according to the question, but I couldn't actually work out how to, which was a slight problem. And I also had some issues with getting the average letter grade in the one from the lecture slides. I kind of knew like the general idea, but I couldn't get it to work, which was a slight problem. So do you mind if we go over that one?
No, I don't, but I'll tell you the order I'm going to do it in, because there's clearly some issues here. So what I'm going to do, rather than go over this lab just now, what I'll do is I'll lecture first, because I know what's coming in the lecture, and I think that will help. And then either in this lab time, or in this lecture time, or in the lab time, I will go over last week's lab, and we'll see if we can get some kind of program to get them to work. But if we go that way around, you okay with that?
Well, you want us to modify ours then?
Pardon?
Well, you want us to modify ours then, so it's to what it should be, or like the ones that we've kind of done that kind of do what it's supposed to do.
I'm not worried about you submitting new ones if that's what you're asking, but I'm worried that you understand what was asked and get an answer to what was asked. And it seems odd for me to say that, but actually that's what you're going to spend your career doing if you're programming. You need to understand what's being asked and do that. And if you're not sure about what's being asked, excuse me, then you need to go back over it and make sure that you understand the question before you create the answer. And I can certainly understand in terms of what you're saying about how it's worded, but you're going to get that a lot, because you're going to be speaking to a lot of people that are woolly in what they want. They are woolly in terms of what it is they want out of the thing that you're going to create for them. And it's part of your job to tease that out and try and understand exactly how it's going to work. So I'm not worried about you submitting it again. I'm not going to put up another assignment. I'm not worried about you overwriting the assignment you've already done. That's not the issue here. I said this last week. Uploading the assignments isn't the issue. Learning to program is the issue. So the fact that you've identified issues, that's fine. I'm happy to go over them. And the fact that you're identifying them is what I wanted to get from this. That if you have issues, let's get them sorted. Let's work out what's happening and see if we can get to a solution. Fair enough?
Yeah, that's
Sure.
fine. Thanks.
Yeah, good with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask, was I the only one that had trouble with the one in the presentation? Like the question was that easy for everyone else?
The one with the grades, Nick?
Yeah, that one.
No,
the second part of that one.
We had a concerted discussion about that. I'm not sure that's right either, but we got there in the end.
I got there in the end as well, but like again, the wording there was super vague as well. It's like, okay, what do you mean 5 students? Do you want to be able to name them? Do you want to have like individual grades for every single one of them, or do you want to lump them together? Like, what do you want? It came clear when the second question came, but again, it wasn't the best wording.
I think it's a problem because we spent like 1 hour on range function, and then
we barely spend any time on the lists, on indexing and slicing and how to add stuff to the lists. And when we came actually to doing a program with the lists, it was quite unclear. That's at least for me.
For my one, I got the list and stuff fine. It was just trying to convert the average numerical grade into the letter grade, and then I was getting an error about a positional argument or something like that. So just kind of ended up giving up.
I'm not ignoring you. I'm just trying to bring up last week's presentation because I've genuinely forgotten what it asked you to do.
Basically, it gave you the first thing it told you to do was put in a grade, put in a mark, and it will give you a grade out. And then we had to append that to take 5 students, and then the last one was or to take however many students you want, which is what I did. And then in the end, they want you to calculate an average of the students' grades, yeah, or marks, and then get a grade from that.
Okay, so this thing here.
Pretty much.
All right. Okay, so it's the same kind of issue. Still worried about iterations, still worried about for loops, not quite sure how to implement them properly. Okay, that's fair enough. What we can do is we can work on that, and clearly you're sitting at some sort of device. If it's a computer and if you can run Python while I'm going through it, I strongly encourage you to do it. So as I'm doing examples, you do them along with me and see if you can get them going too. So don't just sit and listen, actually do the things, okay?
Yeah, that was the only reason why I was even able to do any of the lab work.
All right. Okay, what I'm going to do, as I said then, is if there's nothing else just now, what I'll do is I'll go on to the lecture. I'll take you through the stuff that I want to talk about today, because we're going to look a wee bit more at for loops and add in while. And once we've done that, we'll come back to the labs from last week and see if we can't come up with an answer. All right?
Sure.
Can I ask you something before we start?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a silly question, but
only if you do it a wee bit more loudly. Struggling to hear.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Okay. So, for example, in this particular question, we have to put an enormous if statement, okay? And if something goes wrong with the alignment, the whole thing it's scrapped. In a C++, we have the brackets, so the alignment doesn't matter so much. But in Python, we don't have something similar, or we have. I mean,
in Python, the alignment matters. So you have to have the alignment in place for it to understand what it is you want to do. If you haven't got the indents, it will change the meaning of your code. Sorry?
If we change accidentally something in, in the matter of space, the whole code it's not readable. It's not.
You change the meaning of the code. Yep, I think we did that in week 2. So go back and look at the lecture from week 2 where we actually covered that. But yes, indentation is important.
We don't have
in Python.
some brackets.
It's part of how it works.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions before we get started?
All good from me.
No, nothing just now. Okay. That's quite enough of that. Oh man. So it looks very much as though I have downloaded the one that's got Jerry's voice in it. As much as I love his dulcet tones, I'm not convinced that we want to go through that.
Excuse me, his what now?
The ones that you'll find on Aula, the module coordinators lectures. If I go into the next slide, you'll understand what I mean.
Tony, we're not hearing the sound half of them. Half of them, it's maybe just you.
You're not hearing that, no?
Nah.
Nah, you've got it muted. You're good.
Okay, well, whether you can hear it or not, I can absolutely hear it. So if nothing else, it's going to put me off. So while that was happening, I was downloading the one without some sound. And we shall try again. Take two. Okay, so we had a look at for loops last week, and we want to have a look at while loops as well. So remember what we had in terms of for loops. We had code where we can step through a range. It could be a simple step through, do the first one, the second one, the third one. It could be more complicated, do the first one, the third one, the fifth one. It could be going backwards. We can use text rather than numbers, so we looked at a list last week to do it. So there's lots of different ways to do it, including in this case, putting one loop inside another. So we can do multiple things at once. So what we can do is what we did last week. Remind me again what range 1 to 5 means?
List of numbers going from 1, 2, 3 to 4.
If you're ever not sure, of course, what you can do is just print it out. And I do this a lot when I'm trying to understand what the code is. There's the indentation, by the way. Unless we have that indentation, it doesn't work in terms of the print. See, good start to the morning. Immediately an invalid syntax. Excuse me, what have I forgotten?
You need a colon after the 4?
I need a colon. So let's put in the colon. Let's run it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So not 0 to 4, 1 to 4. So it starts at the first one and stops before the last one. What do I mean by that? Well, if I change that to 9, it will still start at 1, but it will go up to 8. And if I change that to 4, oops, it will start at 4 but stop before it gets to 9. All okay so far?
All fine here.
Remember that from last week? All right, so what we can do to add to that, for some reason the Teams thing keeps going off, and I keep looking over to the chat and it's disappeared behind another window. By the way, I'm using I there, which goes against everything I've said. I've always said to you, use a real variable name, something that tells you what's happening. Traditionally, and I mean for 50 years, loops like this have started at I. Why I?
No clue.
What else that we've looked at in Python stuff?
Because I it's an imaginary number.
Not imaginary, not an index. Integer, thank you, Chris. So it's just an integer. So originally for loops were only integers. So they quite often used I as the first number. And you'll still see this in a lot of programming books and a lot of examples online, which is part of the reason I'm using it here. Do not, please, 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 do not ever use something like I or J unless it's the most simple of loops. So we've got a loop. We're counting from the first one and we stop before we get to the last one. In this particular case, we're going up in 1 because we haven't told it anything else. How do we change it? Whoops. How do we change it and stop it going up in 1s?
You add custom value in a comma after the 9.
So we could, for example, go up in 2s. So we start at 4, we'll go up by 2 to get 6, go up by 2 to get 8, but we stop because the next one is 10 and the end of our range is 9. That step can be anything we want.
You can have any of them be an input value too.
You can have anything be anything, absolutely. I'm just typing these numbers in so that we're clear on what's happening. What would the output be for that, for example?
Just
4 and 8.
4 and 8.
So we'll start at 4, add on the step of 4, gets you to 8. Add on the step of 4, which gets you to 12, but that's beyond the range, the end of the range of 9. So we get 4 and 8. Good. There's nothing stopping us having multiple for loops. So we could have a second interval. Anybody want to take a guess at what we're going to see here?
An error message.
Pardon?
An error because you
Error
forgot
message.
colons again.
Apart from the error?
You'll
1,
have
2, 3, 4.
both ranges.
Both ranges.
2 lists side by side, both ranges. What's the first number that's going to be printed here?
1.
1, 1.
And the second number?
Then 1, 2, 1, 3. So we have we will see four lists.
Whereas, Kevis, you're a mile away from your microphone and I know that you're speaking, but I can't make you out.
We are going to see 4 lists. So the first one is. Can you hear me now or no?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. It's 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5 till 1, 9, and then 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, and etc.
Almost. what did you say wrong in that part?
It doesn't go to 9 or 5.
Doesn't go to 9, it stops at 8.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's right.
We've got two loops here. So the inside loop is going to loop through first. So for j in range 1 to 9, so that's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the print is going to be I at 1, j 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Once the inside loop has completed, it's going to go back out. It's going to the next one in the outside loop. So I is then going to be 2, and it's going to be 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, up to 2, 8. And it's
So
going to
basically
keep
like-
that going until it's done all of the loops. So I've got 1, 1, 1, 2, up to 1, 8, 2, 1, up to 2, 8, 3, 1, up to 3, 8, and 4, 1, up to 4, 8, which for some reason I can't get far enough down to reach. There we go. Anybody get any questions about that before we move on?
How come it loops like 4 times instead of like just 2? Why does it not just stop at like 2.8? And why does it go to like 3 point, then 3.x and then 4.x?
Well, what does the outside range say? What does the I range say?
Between 1 to 5. So it would be 1 to 4.
Which is what the first column is telling you. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Uh-huh.
So why would it stop at 2?
Oh, that's a very good point. Cheers.
And you were close, Roland. Okay, so we can start doing multiple loops. And we don't have to just print them out. We could do operations on them and print them out. What was the asterisk again?
Multiply.
So what we're going to see is an output here.
Is it the first number times, well, 1 I times j, so it'd be 1 times 1 times 1, 1 times 2.
It's like putting multiplication signs between all of the lists you already have and then just printing the result.
Maureen, you're right. Chris, you're right. I'm not sure who that was speaking.
That was me, Nicholas.
Nicholas, you're also right. So what we're getting is all the numbers working their way through, same as they did up here. This time we're going to multiply them and print the answer. So it's 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 1 times 3. And we start to get some numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No surprise, 1 times the outside 1 first time through times the inside loop. So it's 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 1 times 3, up to 1 times 8. Then, more interestingly, the outside loop goes to 2. So it's 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, and so on. And then it's 3 times 1, 3 times 2. It looks almost exactly like a multiplication table. We're doing our 1, 2, 3, and 4 times table. And if you don't believe me, we can make that go up to, say, 12. Because when I was wee, I had to do my times tables up to 12. And let's see if we can't start making this look a wee bit better. Remember right at the start we said we could use escape characters. What was \T?
It's a tab.
Sorry?
It's inserting a tab.
It's inserting a tab. So let's run that and see how that looks. It's not helping us much. Let's, after the outside loop, do a print. Still not quite getting there. So here's the end of it. So we're putting an extra line in between each times table, which is fine as far as it goes. It's not quite what we want. So I'm going to show you another wee trick. I'm going to put in this thing here, end comes double quote. And if I run that, magically we start to get times tables. So let's go through this wee bit of code. Roland was ahead of me. He's already put it into the chat. So for I in range 1 to 5. So first time round, I is 1. For j in range 1 to 12. So first time round, I is 1. Multiply 1 times 1, which gives you 1. Press a tab, which takes you over to here. And there's this magical thing here, which says, don't take a new line, in essence. We'll come back to it later. But it goes to the next one. So it's 1 times 2. It's 2. 1 times 3. 1 times 4. 1 times 5. All the way up to 11. So what did I get wrong with the multiplication table that I wanted?
You would have to go in the J list 13, not 12.
Correct. So I didn't get my ranges right. So you always have to think about where this is going to stop. And this is why partly I'm spending so long in this. Because when you're doing these things, it's actually really helpful as part of your debugging technique to start printing the values of your ranges so you can see exactly what's happening. Because if I hadn't printed these out, I wouldn't know that I was only getting to 11 when I wanted to get to 12.
What would happen if you take the /t out right now? Would it like squish the numbers together?
What do you think? Would it squish the numbers together?
I think so, right? Because it inserts a tab. Ah, okay. I mean, look at that.
And we could add other things in there, so you just put a space. Oops. What I wanted to do. Why don't we just put a space? Why do we need to put a tab? Let's print it and see.
Oh, it actually works.
Okay. But once you get to figures that are different lengths, so we've got 1-digit and 2-digit numbers, it starts to go out of sync. So you're right, Chris, it keeps them level if you put in a tab instead.
That doesn't work in PyCharm. No, I'm doing it along with you, and it didn't work in
I
PyCharm.
promise you it does. I've done all these things in PyCharm. I'm just using this because it's less of a strain on the system.
Yeah, with the space and stuff, it works as well. I just tried it.
Thomas, why is there no colon after which bracket? Because there's lots of brackets in there. Thomas? So here, it's only these things, so things like for and while and all the other special ones where we're going to do them again, the if, where we need the colon, not just a standard instruction. That seems odd until you think to yourself, well, if we're going to put a colon at the end of every line, what good would that be either? So what we're really saying is it's where the line that we have can affect lots of lines. And I know in this particular case, it's only affecting one, but we could have it to up to doing more than one thing for each of those loops. Okay, so where it can do multiple, where it has effect on multiple things, we need the colon in essence. So ifs, whiles, fors, all that kind of stuff. But where it's just a simple statement to do something, we don't need the colon.
Can I ask a question? The print value at the very end, why does that make the list start new every time? I tried deleting it in PyCharm and it just made everything on one line. Why does that empty print value in the end divide them?
Heck's going on here? Hang on. Okay, so I'll just get into that one. So we've gone through. We'll just look at the output of that, remind ourselves where we are. Okay. So we go through the ones. And it does 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 1 times 3, all the way up to 1 times 11. And that's this first print line. When it's done the 11 part, as well as doing this for loop, we're also into this second one. So this for here, and I don't know if you can see it because it's quite faint, but on that screen you can just see those dots.
Yeah,
that's basically saying that for is affecting everything that's indented. So every time we go through that outside loop, when we get to the end of that outside loop, it does the print, and that's what brings us down to the next line.
Okay, and because it's empty, it just puts the next elements.
It just puts
like
a new,
next to it, yeah.
just does new line. So I could, for example, put in NL, and that might help you to see what's happening.
At the very end there.
At the very end, we've now got an NL. And because we haven't done all this jiggery-pokery about end, it prints NL and then takes a new line.
Okay,
I get it. On the next loop.
One would think that with all the time that's required to like reload Python anywhere and stuff like that, you might as well just take the initial time to load up PyCharm, because PyCharm is much quicker in execution during the lecture.
One of the reasons is because, well, you'll see I'm using a browser here, so all the other things that I need are up on the browser, so I can point to Owler, I can point to all the other things. But it's also because there's a whole pile of stuff on PyCharm. Different palettes, different menus, all that kind of thing. And I want to keep this as simple as possible. I want to point out that this happens where we've got some text and some basic text output. It doesn't need all the stuff that PyCharm gives you.
True. Okay.
Chris is having the same issue as me. It isn't working in PyCharm.
Honestly, genuinely, it does work in PyCharm. Clearly, I can't see your code.
It works for me.
Works for me.
I put like the
works for me as well.
Same code, and it I guess it just ain't working for me. I don't know.
Pablo, I know you're speaking, but you're too quiet to hear.
I said I put the same code in PyCharm, and it's giving me a different answer, but it's the exact same code.
I bet you it's not. Bet you any money you want that it's not. If it's the same code, it'll give you the same output.
I've put my code in the chat, and that's exactly the same. It's not. It's only displaying it as a
Okay, somebody tell Casey what's different.
Your print value is indented one too far.
So the second print is working with the inside loop, not the outside loop.
That makes sense.
How much did I just win there?
It was 100 to 1, and I put a quid on, so you get 101 gold.
Okay, so it does work in PyCharm, and it works in Python anywhere, and it works in Replit, and it works in anything. Trust me. If it's not working properly, it's user error. Same as when it doesn't work for me. I've forgotten a colon or I've put it in the wrong place or whatever. But it's user error. Promise. Roland, I think I said right at the start, please don't copy and paste for two reasons. One is when you actually type in what it is you want it to do, you get a closer feel for the code because you actually have to type it in and you're understanding what's going on. The second one is probably the one you'll care about. If you copy and paste, for example, from PowerPoint, you're not just getting the text, you're getting a whole bunch of control characters to make it blue and bold and all the rest of the thing. You'll get issues. And it may or may not work if you do a copy and paste because there'll be characters in there that you can't see, control characters. So they make a difference, but you can't see them, so you can't fix them. So genuinely, and I say this with all my heart, do not copy and paste, type it in. Okay, your own code. Well, in that case, your original code must have had single quotes. Any other questions about that wee bit of code? Anything you're not sure about? Want to ask about?
When do you want your money then?
Immediately. Any other questions? Happy with that code?
I'm good with it.
Okay. So this is called nesting a loop. So we'll put one loop inside the other. You need to be careful with the indentation. So these things here, the for and the print, are both part of this outside for loop. And if you indent this further, it only becomes part of this for loop, albeit that that for loop is part of this for loop. So that's called a nested loop. And for those of you that still didn't believe me, you'll see that the screenshot there is taken from PyCharm. This is where all this was developed. Okay, so we've got an outside loop with a for range starting at the first number and stopping before the last one. So in this case, 1 to 4. We'll get an inside loop, similar idea, 1 to 8. And J will take one of those values each time I takes one of its values. So we're multiplying out the number of times that it's repeating. And the print happens on each one of those. We hit a tab. We stop the print command taking a new line with that end becomes quote quote. And the only time we want a new line is with the final print when J has finished its loop. And that was in essence the first line. And that's what we get. Is it possible to save these numbers in a table? Yes. Later on we'll do that, so we'll start saving them in all sorts of places. Yes.
If you go in rows, it's the same timetables as if you go in columns from top to bottom.
Huh? I'm not sure what point you're making.
I mean, it's kind of fair because it's whatever.
He's saying that if you go like horizontally or vertically, you get the same answer pretty much. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2, 4, 6.
Yeah. When you think about it, it makes complete sense because it's basically just okay. Sorry.
The wonders of numbers. So okay, Roland, we'll show you later on how we start saving those kind of things. But yes, we'll get to that later. We're still only week 5. Don't worry about it. We've got a lot to go. Okay, any last questions about the for loops?
Is there a different way to create a new line than just printing an empty statement?
Yes. So in the same way as there's \t, there's all sorts of escape characters. I think we actually used \n at one point for a new line.
Okay, got it.
And if you do a quick Google for Python escape characters, you'll see the complete list of everything you can do. But T for tab, N for new line are some of the most common ones. Any other questions? Okay. So we've got for loops. For loops are there when we know how many times we want to do something. What if we want to do something until something happens? What if we want to do something while we're checking whether something has happened or whether we've reached a limit or whatever? That's when we use a while loop. So if we jump straight in, there is a while loop. So what we've done is we've set up some simple code. Okay, so what's line 1 saying?
Total becomes 0.
Okay, so we've set a new variable called total, and we'll set its value as 0. Line 2.
And the custom value number becomes an input.
It prompts for a float.
It doesn't prompt for a float. Want to rephrase that?
Can you expand the screen a bit?
There's a prompt there, enter the first number. So
it prompts for a number, but the number could be a float.
Do you want to go further than could be? What is it we get from an input statement, first of all?
You get
a string.
You get a string. So what do we need to do with that string?
Convert it into a float, like what you were doing right there.
Okay, so we need to convert it into a number. In this particular case, we're using float. We've done this before with int, if you remember. But in this particular case, we're going to make it a float because we're going to allow decimal points. Okay, while number, what is exclamation mark? Equals?
Not equal to.
Sorry?
Not equal.
Not equal to.
Okay, so while the number is not equal to 0, what's number again? Well, number's our thing from line 2 there. So while the input number is not 0, we're going to do some stuff. So let's just do this. So total becomes 0. Number becomes a float of an input of enter number. I'm going to add this extra bit, 0 to finish. We're not just prompting for a number, we're given some extra instructions on how we're going to stop this when we need to. If you have questions as we're going along, shout them out. While number is not the same as 0. We're going to do some things. So again, while can influence a lot of
colon. Add a colon after the 0.
Oh, I've forgotten a colon. Okay, well done. Thomas, well done. You forgot a bracket, or I forgot a bracket, and you pointed it out rather. So we're catching these as we go along. Good. So the while line can influence a lot of statements. So we have to indent it. And whatever's on this indent is what the while will influence. First thing we're going to do is we're going to update the total. So we're going to say the total becomes whatever the total already is plus what you type in.
So the total plus 0.
No. Well, depends what you input.
Wait, never mind.
Okay, let's run that and see how we get on. Okay, so enter a number 0 to finish. 2. It's not really helpful, is it?
Have you tried turning off on again?
Say that again?
It was a joke, never mind.
I just didn't hear it.
I said if you try turning it on and off again.
You need to put a print in there.
Need to put a print in there. Well, first of all, we need to come out of this. So let's see if I can quit this. Okay, let's print out the total. Is that what you want to do?
No, but basically the total is going to increase till the infinity because it's always different from 0. I don't know.
No, don't know if we'll get to infinity. So enter a number. There's my 2 again.
Oh god, it just keeps running. Oh god. Oh no.
Oops.
Oh god. Make it stop.
Does the print have to be back?
It's so fed up.
Should the print not be indented within the while statement, or?
Well, the print is indented within the while statement.
Aye, but should it not be?
Well, a couple of things. So, first time we did this, it just sat there.
For anyone that's running this in PyCharm, you can click on the top right. There's a stop. There's a stop button. You can click that to stop the thing from running.
What I didn't see was anything happening. That didn't mean nothing was happening. It was continually, the first time round, it was continually adding 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And it was keeping doing that until it ran out of numbers. I just stopped it before it finished. So when Jen asked me to add the print, we could see that process happening. It was adding that number and just continuing to add that number forever. It's called an infinite loop. If you do something where you put it in a loop where there's no possible way to exit, it's called an infinite loop, and it will either just stop forever, or as it has here, it's decided that no, you've had enough, can't do this anymore, and it's stopped me from hurting myself and just finished the console.
Is this something similar to what causes memory leaks, for example?
They can. It's unusual that it causes a memory leak, but they can do.
Thank you.
So what we're going to do, Roland says input should be inside the while, otherwise it will loop infinitely on its own. So Roland wants to take the input and put it inside, put it inside the while loop. Is that better? Let's see what happens. That's interesting. What's happened there?
You're using number before it's been made into a variable.
Okay, so up here we have checked what the variable is before the variable's been set up. How are we going to fix that?
Number equals to 0 maybe before the loop.
So we could do the same as we've done with total, and we could say number becomes 0. Yeah? Okay, let's give that a go.
It's not going to run the loop because number equals to 0.
We've set number to 0 and said while number's not 0, do things, so it's just going to stop. It's immediately stopping because the number is 0. So how are we going to fix it?
Can you declare that as an empty variable?
So it's no.
That's difficult to do in Python. So some languages you can say variable. It's not difficult. We can do it. Okay, let's do print. Let's call it a float. So we'll declare the variable. What's going to happen this time?
It doesn't have a value, so.
Does it not?
It doesn't. I don't think it does.
Why?
It's not been assigned a value yet.
Does that mean it doesn't have a value?
No, I don't think. Yeah, it should, but what is the value? I don't know about that.
Does it not default to 0? Does it not default to 0?
No, it doesn't default to 0. And that's what I'm trying to get to. If you declare a variable, all it's doing is taking a piece of memory and saying, the next time I want to access number, I'm going to come to this piece of memory. But you don't know what's in there. It might be 0, or it might be 1.6 million, or -4, or X. We just don't know. So when we run this code, we have no clue what's going to happen. Well, we do, because I messed up the declaration. Point it stands though. We don't know when we declare a variable what it's going to be. So let's take that out. How are we going to address it? I take it you're all reading the chat. So Roland's got a suggestion. We have.
Someone's profusely trying to type and find it.
Roland, is that what you want? Or anybody else? Is that what we want?
It would work.
Would it work?
Yeah, so it'd ask you once, then it would start the loop, and it'll keep asking you.
Okay, so let's do it. It's asking me once, quite right. Oh, but it's saying it's asking me again.
Yeah, it's going to keep asking you.
Oh, now it's asking me again and working. So it only started adding the second time. So it's ignored the first number. Because I've got a 2, a 2, and a 3. And apparently the answer is 5. So what's wrong there?
It only needs the first input line instead of both input lines.
And then we're back where we started.
But outside the while loop. Wait, no, never mind.
So the first line in the while loop is the input. So she's asking you straight away.
We probably don't want it to do that. We probably want it to do what it's already been doing. Roland wants me to swap 5 and 6. I'm actually just going to put it at the end so that it prints the total and then asks again. Will that work?
It's still... Oh, wait, actually, yeah, okay, that should work. Wait, no, it's adding the number to... It's adding the previous number to the... Yeah, that's going to work.
Just to make clear what's happening, I'm going to enter the numbers in the order. So I'm going to put a 1 for the first one it's asking for, then a 2, and then a 3, and then a 4. So we started at 0, we added 1 and it's 1, and we added 2 and it's 3, and then we added 3 and it's 6, and then we added 4 and it's 10. Looks all right to me. Is it right?
Yeah, but how would we finish that? Would that not just keep asking you?
I don't know. How can we finish that? Is there any hidden way that we can finish that? It's hard to know. Thank you, Thomas. I'm glad somebody was paying attention. And we add 0 to finish. So now we've got a while loop that asks us for a number, adds it onto a total, prints it out, and then adds us for the next one and loops around. Just to finish it off, we'll do
You've missed your quotations.
Oh man, I'm terrible at this. Don't know why MD lets me teach this stuff. I clearly don't know anything. I'm glad you're catching these as we're going on. Can you add a print line out of the while loop at the end that will display the total, or is it overkill? Oh, sorry. I should have read that really before I started doing it. So there we go, same idea. We start putting in numbers and we have our own calculator. Well, a calculator that does additions anyway.
So you set the total as 0 in the beginning, but that gets overwritten by the total inside the while loop.
The total is always overwritten because you're always updating it. So the first time through, so let's run it again. So let's think about what's happening here. Give me a second. I've got a new toy that hopefully will let me show you what's happening. If only I could get it to run. There we go. Okay, so first time round, we set the total to 0. Okay. We take in a number. So I'm going to have 2 columns here for total and number, and I'm just going to say 3. So we'll go through our code. While number is not 0. So remember, this is the total. and this is really hard writing with a mouse, is a number. So is number 0?
Well, at the start it is,
No,
and then it changes when you add on to it.
No, we'll get total and we've got number. So total was 0, so I've set that to 0. We've got our number, which I've set to 3. So for line 4, is number 0?
No.
No, it's 3. So total becomes total plus number. So total 0 plus 3. So total now becomes 3. Print the total, okay, and then we get our next number. Number becomes whatever that is. And we'll put a 4. And we go back to the start of the loop. So is number 0?
No.
No, number is 4. So total becomes total plus number. So the total is 3, number is 4, so total plus number is 7. So total becomes 7. Print the total, get our next number. Next number is 8. Go back to the start of the loop. While number is not 0. Is number 0?
No.
No, number is currently 8. So the total becomes a total plus the number. The number is 7. The total is 7, the number is 8. So total plus number is 15. So total becomes 15. We get the next number. Number becomes float input. So I'm going to input a 0. We go back to the breaking up for everybody.
No.
Not for me. It's fine for me.
Yeah, I'm chilling.
Okay, so while number is not 0, is number 0?
Yeah.
Now it's 0, yes.
Yep, so number is now 0. So we don't do this and we jump on to line 9.
Okay,
and
so
we
the
print
code above
final
the
total of 15. What was that?
So the code above the while loop just runs once at the beginning of the thing. It's looked at again by the program.
We're still running in order here. So unless we do something with an if or a for or a while, we're just going in order. It's only when we have these indent things that we have to do them multiple times or different times or not at all, depending on what it is we're doing.
Got it. Thank you.
So remember, I've been saying we have to know exactly what's going to happen.
Yo, Jed, your mic.
Jed, what was that jet engine? What?
The heck was that?
Didn't know you were an aeronautical engineer.
Hair dryer.
Damn.
I don't have that much hair left. I don't need a hair dryer. Okay, remember I was saying right at the start that before we write our program, and certainly before we run it, we have to know what it wants to do. Oh, kettle. Aye, where's my cup of tea?
That's one demonic kettle.
We have to know what it is supposed to do and its output. That's exactly what I've just done here. So I've gone through each in turn. I've understood what the numbers are, what they should be, and what I should get at the end. So I can now run this program using exactly the same things that I did here. So the first number I put in was 3. The second number I put in was 4. The third number was 8. And the fourth number was 0, giving me a final total of 15, which is what I predicted here. That's testing. So we've said what we wanted, we've worked our way through it, we've understood what the output will be, we've got our answer, and when we ran the program, we got the answer as predicted. Does that make sense?
All
It
clear for
does
me.
when you draw it like that.
Part of the reason I drew it like that is because that's what I want you to start thinking of doing. Have a bit of paper beside you. Before you run your program, do stuff like this. Write down the variable names. Put in their values. Work your way through the program before you ever hit run, so that you can understand how it's going to work and what it's going to do. Everyone happy with that?
I'm a happy camper.
Anybody get any questions? No, all happy with that before we move on? Okay. We've ended up with code that's very like what we've got here. What's the one exception?
This one doesn't print the total iteration, the total iterations while you're doing the calculations.
Yeah, sorry, that's true. What's the other change? Just in terms of the syntax and how it's entered. Have a look at the while loop.
The while's in brackets.
Yeah. I didn't put the while in brackets. I deliberately didn't do that to be different from the one here, because the one here is right. Put the stuff in brackets. But Tony, you say, you didn't put brackets and it still worked. Yes, it did, because it's a very simple while loop. We're checking one variable against one value. But quite often, you'll be checking multiple things. And if you have to check multiple things, and as the logic becomes more complicated, you want to put in the brackets to fully understand what's going on. The same way that we spoke about putting in the brackets when it was arithmetic. Put them in so that you're very clear on what's going to happen. Excuse me. Thank you. Jen, I don't know how you organised it, but thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Somehow managed to turn tea into coffee. I mean, coffee into tea as well. That's pretty interesting.
I've got tea. Coffee's the work of the devil.
Yeah, but it's the best of devil's work. What can you say?
Tea. So put in the brackets like it is here, so that you're always very clear what's going on, okay? Don't do it the way I did it. Okay. When we did that, it's entirely possible that we could do the code no times at all. Or at least the code in the loop. It's entirely possible we can do it no times. Run that, and the first thing I put in is 0. So it doesn't run the stuff in here at all. Hi, Charm does like the brackets. Don't even get me started. It's part of the reason we set the total to 0 to begin with. So that if we do run through it no times at all, then it still works. Okay, so it might not work through at all. Sometimes we don't want that. Sometimes we always want it to work. So we get stuff like this. So it's the same program in terms of the loop, but it exits in a different way. So you could do something like this. While true. Well, clearly that's always true. True is always true, so it will always work, always keep going. We get a number, you enter the number, and then we do a check. If the number is 0, then break. So we'll get this keyword break, and that breaks us out of this while loop. So anytime you see a break in a loop, it means come out of that loop and move on to the next one. In this case, it's line 6. This works. It's used all over the place. It's very common in C, in Java, and all kinds
so you have to create a child loop to break out of the parent loop.
Well, this isn't a child loop, it's a check, it's an if statement.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But what I was going to say was, this is incredibly common, it's used all the time. I despise it. I absolutely hate it, because I've seen it go wrong too many times. In the same way as we got the infinite loop before. Sorry, Jen, I thought you were going to say something there. You kind of flickered.
I'm just going to wonder, you mean you despise the break?
Yes. I will think less of you if you use a break in your code.
Okay, duly noted.
It's far too easy to get an infinite loop because you haven't got the break set up properly. And it's kind of lazy. It just means you haven't quite thought through how it's going to work. So I really don't like it. There is no place where you cannot have a different logic in your code without using a break. So I just don't like it. But as I say, thousands of programmers do, thousands of programs use it. Different languages.
So how would you have done that without the break?
The same as we just did. So we did it, we get a number, and then we check. And we come out when the number was 0. This is doing exactly the same way. We're just checking if the number is 0 here and using this break to go, oh, right, let's exit.
The program is lying, though. You typed in 2 and it gave you entered 2.0, but that's not.
Is it lying?
It's not lying.
Down here in the output, why is it?
It's a floating
printing
point that you had inputted, so it will be 2.0.
But why doesn't it just print 2?
Because it's a float.
Because it's a float.
Because you made it a float.
So to remind you that it's a float, because it knows that it's a float, it will always put in the floating point, even if there's nothing after it.
Copy that.
Okay, so you can use it this way. I really don't like it. No doubt Pablo and Enrique are going to now jump up and down and tell me that it's a wonderful thing and they use it all the time. No, I'm not saying
I don't see any jumping happening.
Yeah, they've probably gone away. They've had enough. Okay, so we can work our way through things. So we had a for loop, excuse me, where we went 1 to 5. We could do the same with a while loop. We could say, instead of using a range like we did in a for loop, we could use a counter. Set it to 0. While the counter is less than 5, we're going to do the stuff in the loop. We'll just, I don't know, we'll print the counter.
Would that not give you an error since total is not a variable? Yeah.
What will happen with that?
It's just going to print 0 to 4.
Is it? Why?
It's just going to count 0 an infinite number of times.
Why?
Because you're not adding up anything. It's just going to be 0. It's nothing is changing. It's always just going to stay 0.
Correct. We're never changing the counter. So we need to do something to it.
Counter plus equals 1.
So we'll add 1 to the counter each time through. Plus plus works in C. From memory, I don't think it works in Python. Actually, I genuinely can't remember. Try it, but I think that I don't think it's a Python thing. Yeah, no, plus plus doesn't work.
Wait, is plus equals the same as equals plus, or do you have to write plus equals?
I believe you have to write plus equals.
I found out to my detriment it has to be plus equals, I think.
Got it.
Otherwise.
Oh boy. Wait, it hasn't quit on you yet.
Yeah. Nor can I get it to. Okay, so this is in essence a for loop starting at 0 to 5.
So what you've created is a very convoluted range.
In essence, yeah. But it can be used in all sorts of ways because this is just a counter. It could be text or a limit. A limit on number of attempts. While number of attempts less than 3 do ask for pin. So, because you don't know how many attempts you're going to get, you can't say for range 1 to 3 get pin. You don't want to give them 3 goes. You want to check that they haven't taken more than 3. So depending on what it is your program needs to do, you might have to use a different setup. So you might get something like you can do things like that. You can start checking in and giving them 3 goes. But both of those will exit. So if they get the pin right, it goes. Okay, so there's different ways that you can approach things depending on what you want to get. That code's not complete, by the way, so don't try and run it without adding extra bits in. Yeah, so Enrique is correct in everything he's saying. So it's less about the particular type of loop that you're doing and more about the kind of problem that you're attempting to solve. And he's right in terms of memory management and all the rest of it. But what takes precedence, particularly for you, is understanding the problem and fixing that problem. Any questions about the while loops? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying anything?
Because I don't have a question.
Okay, so you could, for example, change your marks to grades to use some of the techniques here. You could then add things in to start calculating some statistics. Average mark, grade. So you can extend your stuff out, and I'd like to do that before the next class. So I'm going to extend the marks to grades with those and do lab 5.
Wait, the marks to grades that we have already extended on, we now extend further, or do we do
Correct.
it from the original one? Okay, we do it further.
And you can amend it. So it's not, some of it isn't actually extended because we're not asking you to do anything new. We're just asking you to do it with a new technique.
Got it.
Okay, so you didn't have any more questions. Let me quickly show you if I can find it. So the lab for today one straight from the lecture, from multiplication table. We're going back to doing lists that we did last week. So it's lists of text rather than numbers. And then we're finally getting to the random one that I prematurely introduced last week. To try and guess a random number.
Oh no.
Oh
no,
yes.
Please. No. No.
Compared to last week, it seems more self-explanatory.
Oh, you just jinxed all of us. Thanks, man.
Any questions on that? Okay. What I'll do then, if there's no questions, I'm going to stop the recording. Don't forget, this will be available on Teams either later today or tomorrow. It takes a wee while to process for some reason. So come and look at this if there's anything you weren't sure about.